What happened in the year 1933? Everything I show you in this video is specific to the year 1933. Before the main feature, I'd like to tell you about some of the comic strips and cartoon characters that debuted this year. Comic strip debuts of 1933. The Adventures of Smilin' Jack, a good time adventure strip with a pilot hero. The Ambassador, a short-lived comic strip by Otto Saglo that was an intentional ripoff of his own popular comic strip, The Little King. This strip was created as a placeholder for King Feature Syndicate while Saglo was still under contractual obligation to The New Yorker, where The Little King was appearing. In 1934, when Saglo could move to King Features, The Ambassador was dropped and The Little King took its place. Brick Bradford. He was a sci-fi hero like Buck Rogers, whose strip started in 1929. The also similar Flash Gordon did not debut until 1934. Captain Easy. This adventure strip was a spin-off of the popular Wash Tubbs comic strip and outlasted it by a shot. It had humor, and his adventures were more down-to-earth than heroes like Buck Rogers or Dick Tracy. Cicero's Cat, a spin-off of the popular Mutt and Jeff comic strip. This was also well-liked, but generally stayed a topper strip for Mutt and Jeff and rarely was given its own spotlight. Mutt's son was named Cicero, and his cat was named Desdemona. She may not be as well known as Crazy Cat, Heathcliff, or Garfield, but for many years Cicero's cat was a very popular comic strip kitty. Dan Dunn. This strip is a shameless ripoff of Dick Tracy, which made its debut in 1931. The artwork mimics Dick Tracy. The hero is also a detective, but, in some kind of attempt to separate him from Dick Tracy, is also a secret agent. I'm surprised there wasn't a lawsuit to shut this strip down. Dan Dunn was actually pretty dull in comparison to Dick Tracy, but had its audience and was around for 10 years. He also appeared in comic books, Big Little Books, and a radio show. When Dan Dunn was done, he was done, and he is little remembered today. Dickie Dare. This was a fun adventure strip that should be more well known than it is. It was the first comic strip created by the legendary Milton Caniff. By the next year, he would create the extremely successful Terry and the Pirates. By the end of 1934, Caniff was done with Dickie Dare, but it was continued by other artists until 1957. It was similar to Terry and the Pirates. Dickie Dare was the boy hero of the strip who shared adventures with the freelance writer Dynamite Dan Flynn. However, this was not the strip's format in 1933. In 1933, and until the spring of 1934, Dickie Dare dreamed himself into adventures with epic characters like Robin Hood, Robinson Crusoe, and King Arthur. Caniff quickly tired of this formula, however, and changed the strip from fantasy to reality. He also added the character of Flynn. It was the right choice. Little Joe. This Western comic strip could be very funny, but also very serious. By the early 1950s, the strip became purely comedy. The strip actually worked better when it was being funny because the characters had such well-defined, quirky personalities. Radio Patrol. This comic strip was created at the Boston Record newspaper to compete with Dick Tracy, but it certainly wasn't a ripoff. It was originally called Pinkerton Jr. and featured a boy named Pinky. In 1934, the strip was picked up by King Features and was rechristened Radio Patrol. It became a hit and was noted for its serious tone. Unlike Dick Tracy, there was no evidence of the fantastic or supernatural, just cop action. They even strived for realism. The main character became Sergeant Pat. It was even given a radio show and a movie serial. Uncle Art's Funland. A.W. Nugent created this puzzles and games feature. He also did a lot of work for comic books. Nugent sometimes, but rarely did just regular funny cartoons. Almost everything he did was a puzzle or some kind of activity. Continued by his son, it ran until 1991. Then, surprise surprise, it was brought back in 2009 and still exists as of 2023. The creator of the feature nowadays goes by N.A. Nugent, which some people believe is a pen name that stands for Not a Nugent. Cartoon debuts of 1933. Disney's Three Little Pigs made their debut this year. The Three Little Pigs cartoon was a smash hit and introduced an extremely popular song, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? There would only be 4 more cartoons with the Three Little Pigs through 1941, but the characters have always been popular in comics and other merchandising. Popeye the Sailor made his comic strip debut in 1929, but he did not make his first theatrical cartoon until 1933. He was introduced in a Betty Boop cartoon from Fleischer Studios. Fleischer, and later Famous Studios, continued to feed us a steady diet of 231 Popeye cartoons through 1957. Wow, that's a lot of cartoons. Then, something even more incredible happened. From 1960 to 1962, another 220 Popeye cartoons were made expressly for television by 6 different studios. Since that time, there have been various Popeye cartoon shows and specials. I guess he was a hit. Another popular comic strip character that made his cartoon debut was the Little King. Compared to Popeye, the Little King's filmography is weak. He was given 12 cartoons between 1933 to 34, produced by Van Buren Studios. He had 1 more cartoon in 1936 with Betty Boop, and that was it. Betty couldn't do for Little King what she did for Popeye. Terrytoons did something rather interesting this year. They started a series of cartoons that spoofed the old-time melodramatic plays, as well as the old silent movie serials. The heroine was a sexy blonde named Fanny Zilch. The hero was the studly cowboy Strongheart. The villain was the sinister Oil Can Harry. Almost all the dialogue was done in opera style. Of the 8 cartoons that were made in this series, 5 of them were done in 1933. Despite the short run, the cartoons were hits, especially those made this year. And they were funny. As time went on, it was clear to see that Oil Can Harry was the funniest character. Fanny Zilch was drawn extremely sexy in the early cartoons, but was toned down in later entries. Although these cartoons wrapped it up in 1937, they were brought back in a way via the popular Mighty Mouse cartoons. Mighty Mouse started in 1942, but in 1947, the villain Oil Can Harry was reintroduced as a cat. A mouse version of Fanny Zilch was also introduced, but named Pearl Pureheart. Mighty Mouse himself became a new version of Strongheart. The format became so well known that people think these 3 characters were in every Mighty Mouse cartoon. In reality, this lineup appeared in only 14 out of 81 cartoons. It's memorable pop culture, and it all started with Fanny Zilch. Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoons were around in 1933, but their early years were met with limited success. The boy character of Buddy was introduced as a replacement for their first star, Bosco. Buddy didn't do all that well in his 2-year stint, besides the fact that he was aggressively promoted. Super success with Bugs Bunny was a long way off. Meanwhile, at Van Buren Studios, Cubby Bear was introduced. He was simply a ripoff of Mickey Mouse. Ub Iwerks had 2 new developments this year. One was the boy character of Willy Whopper, who told fantastic stories. The other was the better-known Comic Color cartoon series. As the name suggests, these cartoons were all in color. They were almost entirely new versions of classic children's stories. These cartoons are still well known thanks to cheap home video releases. Stay tuned after the main feature to find out about the popular songs and movies of 1933. And now... Dun 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 dun!
decisive vote of the 36th state against prohibition is happy news for the grain raisers of the United States and for many others throughout the land. With an eye on December 5th, work is being rushed in distilleries and bottling works. Thousands are being called back to work in plants of allied industries. At least 500,000 new jobs are predicted as the result of repeal. From keg and barrel factories, perhaps the most closely allied line, immediate benefits from repeal extend into almost every line of business and commerce. However, everyone's not waiting until December 15th. The lid is off in many places, with the downfall of prohibition being celebrated in real old-time hilarity. Yes, and by the renewal of old acquaintances. Hotels and nightclubs report a real pre-war spirit among those revelers. Boy! The Berengaria is bringing in Maxim M. Litvinov, Soviet Commissar of Foreign Affairs.
I'm looking forward to the great pleasure and honor of making the acquaintance of your illustrious President, who is giving yet another proof of his wisdom and broad views by taking the initiative and addressing Mr. Kalinin. I shall also be extremely glad to renew my acquaintance with your Secretary of State, Mr. Cordell Hull, whom I had the great pleasure of meeting at the London International Conference.
The Russian envoy is met by representatives of the State Department and transferred from the Berengaria to a government tug, which speeds him to the Jersey City Railroad terminal, where a fast train is waiting to whisk him to Washington. It's a momentous visit, the first official one from Russia in 16 years. America, which turned him down in 1918, is welcoming Mr. Litvinov, this time with great ceremony.
If the women are willing to do things because it's going to help their neighbors, I think we'll win out. We'll win out not because of a government, not even because of our leaders, but because as a people we've had a vision and we've worked for it and we've seen it through. Okay.
Kansas City, Missouri. Here's a real philanthropist. Louis Cumnow, a clothing merchant, is giving away 500 overcoats from his stock to unemployed men of the city. And what a break it is for these poor fellows, with cold weather adding to their miseries. Of course, it's not exactly like being measured to order, but in these days and times, a coat is a coat. Aroused by the finding of Brookhart's mutilated body, a mob stormed the jail here to get his confessed kidnappers. Tear gas couldn't stop him, says Under Sheriff Hamilton.
We held the crowd off as long as the tear gas held out. The crowd kept coming on, and we dare not shoot on account of the women and children.
From their cell windows, the two culprits could see the mob howling for their lives. Other prisoners saw and trembled too.
We could see the mob from the windows in our cells on the 3rd floor. They were demanding these two men. The mob came in up onto the 3rd floor. The boys were worried about whether they would get the right man or not.
Out into beautiful St. James Park, the whimpering pair was dragged. And on that tree, Thomas Thurman was yanked to his doom in less time than it takes to tell it. Then his body was cut down and burned. Meanwhile, 100 yards away, the other kidnapper, Jack Holmes, was hanged to another tree. Feeling was so great over the atrocious kidnap murder that Governor Rolfe himself condones the lynching.
The people of California are peaceable and law-abiding citizens. It's no wonder, after the body of young Brookhart was recovered yesterday, that they were so aroused at the kidnapping and the murdering of this young man that they momentarily forgot themselves and was determined to give notice to the world that kidnapping and the murders which follow it would not be tolerated in this state.
It is with much pleasure and pride that I am receiving you today into the Winnebago tribe of Indians. It is appropriating that I should give you a name that will be known as a happy fighter. And in our own native tongue, it's Nanchkejipi Wakizaga.
Did you get him to repeat that?
Nanchkejipi
Nanchkejipi
Wakizaga.
Wakizaga. Newly constituted Chief Dickie Chiga Wagga Wagga. I desire to express my appreciation to my chief and my brother tribesmen.
In spirit, we join with millions of others, men and women and children, throughout our own land and in other countries and other continents, in happy and reverent observance of the spirit of Christmas. To more and more of us, those words, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself," have taken on a meaning that is showing itself and proving itself in our purposes and in our daily lives. May the practice of that high ideal of 20 centuries grow in us all in the year to come. And so I give you and send you, one and all, old and young, a Merry Christmas and a truly happy New Year.
Ooh la la, so it's come to this, eh? They're exhibiting transparent gowns in the salons here along Champs-Élysées. And what a kick it is for the boulevardiers. They may be wearing their dresses longer here in Paris, but they certainly don't run to colors. It's just about the last word in visibility. But don't be perturbed. This is only a lingerie show. You're not supposed to pay any attention to the gowns. Anyone can see through that.
Let's do it for Chicago. Let's do it for Mayor Kelly, for George Brown, everybody. Let's get together and put this thing over, please.
Yes, we want to put it over, don't we, girls? Yes.
Well, then let's go. Press, will you please start that again? Okay. Let's start that again. Will you press Sellers and let's sit. Let's go. Lot of pep. More. Let's go. Let's put this over. Let's make it a great Christmas show.
Mr. Harris, I've got to answer that question. Right now, I'm going to ask you. I'm very important.
Now?
Right now?
Not now. I don't want to be asked any questions. I want to be left alone. Now, let's smile, girls. That's fine. That's lovely. That's more like it. That's what we want. Let's go.
there. Now, I think that was a swell job. That's
Harris,
just what
Mr.
I
Harris,
wanted there.
Mr.
Yes,
Harris,
yes,
listen,
what
I want to ask you something. I'm going to ask you right now. It's a matter of life and death. It's very, very important. I got to
It's
ask
very
you.
important.
Oh, it's so important. I've got to know. For 25 years, I've been wondering you this question.
Well, what is it,
What
Tom?
is it?
What is it?
Say, is there a Santa Claus? No kidding.
Just what I would expect.
Springtime isn't far away now, and already the young girl's fancy is turning to thoughts of, well, spring shoes, among other things. Here are a few of the new creations. A white satin evening sandal, so they tell me. Looks all right. Another bit of white satin. An evening faucet, pump, trimmed with silver kid. And here's another, an evening sandal of red velvet. Looks like a honey to me. And one for afternoon, a white kid sandal trimmed with red. All very nifty. A really fine display. The shoes are very nice too. Yes, indeed.
Our NRA proposition is attracting tremendous attention on the other side. The people that I have met from all over Europe have an immense amount of confidence in our president. They all are confident that the NRA thing will work out fine. As far as Universal is concerned, it is costing us a lot of money, perhaps $1 million a year. But I, for one, am glad to spend $1 million if it helps to bring back prosperity to this country.
It is 3 months, my friends, since I have talked to the people of this country about our national problems. But during this period, many things have happened. And I am glad to say that the major part of them have greatly helped the well-being of the average citizen. In the short space of these few months, I am convinced that at least 4 million have been given employment. Or saying it another way, 40% of those seeking work have found it. That does not mean, my friends, that I am satisfied or that you are satisfied that our work is ended. We have a long way to go, but we are on the way. We come to the relief, for a moment, of those who are in danger of losing their farms or their homes. I have publicly asked that the foreclosure on farms and chattels and homes be delayed until every mortgagor in the country has had full opportunity to take advantage of federal credit. And I make the further request that if there is any family in the United States about to lose its home or its farm, that family should telegraph at once, either to the Farm Credit Administration or the Home Loan Corporation in Washington, requesting their help. I do not hesitate to say that although the prices of many products of the farm have gone up, and although many farm families are better off than they were last year, I am not satisfied. It is definitely a part of our policy to increase the rise and to extend it to those products that have as yet felt no benefit. If we cannot do this one way, we will do it another. But do it, we will.
On the day before the German elections, just by way of impressing their great strength upon the people, brown-shirted Nazis parade through the streets of every large city and town throughout Germany. Here in Berlin is one of the most amazing pageants ever seen. Although it's raining, this parade, which started early in the afternoon, will continue until dark. 10,000 serious but enthusiastic men in Hitler uniform, marching down the Strasse unter den Linden, the greatest display of Nazi strength that has yet been seen in Germany.
Of course, I am delighted, but not surprised by the final repeal of the 18th Amendment. I felt all along that when this matter was properly submitted to the rank and file of our people, they would readily see that it had no place in our Constitution. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to estimate the benefit that will come to this country from the lesson taught to the coming generations to make it their business to see that no such matter as this is ever again made the subject of federal constitutional law.
President Masaryk of Czechoslovakia, accompanied by his Minister of War and various army generals, today is leading a triumphant procession through the streets of Prague to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the founding of the Czechoslovakian Republic. It's the big day of the year in Prague, and the Army's putting on an impressive demonstration. These new armored cars are being shown for the first time for the crowd's benefit. The Czechoslovakian Army is modern in every detail, with first-rate field artillery and battalion after battalion of well-trained and well-equipped infantry. The little Czechoslovakian Republic means to maintain its integrity despite Europe's present war scare.
The election in New York City this year is quite different from the usual political contest between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. This is a fight against a cruel, vicious, greedy political machine. We are fighting this vicious machine, whether it is the machine of Manhattan or the machine of the Bronx. We are ready to fight Mr. Curry in Manhattan and Mr. Flynn of the Bronx together or separately. And to that end, we appeal to the decent, law-abiding New York citizens who love their city to rally to the support of the entire fusion ticket. It is the only hope of rescuing and saving our New York City.
Washington kicks off as DeRine boots it. Down straight the middle to Flower, takes it on the 10-yard line, the 15, the 20, the 25, the 30, and 29. And there goes Flower with the ball on the wide end run, going wide. He's getting away from Bill Smith, and he's brought down by Boyle, the center, for a loss of 3 yards. California's ball, 2nd and 7. Flower takes it, fakes back the pass. There it comes, and it is completed. Hitting him, and he's out of bounds. The ball, Washington's ball, Wyshynski out wide, formation right. DeRine is back, starting an end run, and he's down, stopped by Brittingham for a gain of 1 yard. Washington's ball, Washington wearing the dark jerseys. And it's a reverse this time to Selkowski, shooting off tackle, and he's down on the 46-yard line. Reverse. Washington's ball, Ahonen feeding back the pass. There it comes, a short one, and it is completed on the 44-yard line of California. There it goes to Ahonen. A forward pass completed on the 3-yard line. Beautiful play. And so he's down by scoring on the 27-yard line. Washington's ball, Wyshynski back in punt formation. Ready for the pass from center. There it goes. And there goes the ball. A high punt. Stewart of California takes it on his own 33 and goes out of bounds on the 30. California has the ball. And here comes Muller on a reverse play, shooting at his own left tackle, and it's down for a gain of about 5 or 6 yards. Williams is back for California and takes it on a buck through the middle, spins and drives through to be stopped by Peterson on about the 6-yard line. California's foul, and Williams punches, and he's going almost to a touchdown. Not quite, I don't believe. 1 yard to go to a goal. Williams takes it for California, and it's a touchdown for California. California back, formation left. Flower takes it this time. It's a forward pass behind the line of scrimmage to Torrell. No gain. Back, takes it, starts way out wide, cuts, hasn't cut in yet, goes over for a touchdown.
Nope, it ain't no 6-day bike race. It's Babe Ruth doing a Velocipede marathon. But if he doesn't take off a ton or two, he'll need a bicycle to get around the bases next summer. You'll take the works, Babe, and like it. They don't pay by the pound, you know. Well, turnabout is fair enough. The Babe gives his trainer a workout now. Watch it, Babe. Look out for the old helium bag. That's his daughter Julia watching. And she acts as a second, too, when he needs it. Well, he'll be in shape by summertime, pounding out home runs as good as ever. Babe Diedrichson, champion, all-round girl athlete of the world, the girl that Texas is so proud of, at last has gone professional and is ready to compete with Babe Ruth or anybody else in anything from marbles to prize fighting. When she got to New York, she made right for McGovern's gym to keep up her training, and her million-dollar legs will jump, sprint, or run with the best of them. She swims like a fish, handles a mean cue at the billiard table, she bowls 272, and gets an 82 at golf. She's good at everything from water polo to ping pong. She's never done much boxing, but you'd never know it. Boy, she handles her fists like Jack Dempsey.
The Republic of China is holding its first national athletic meet here today, and although they have modern races and other events, it's the old-time sports of the Chinese people that prove most popular. The fame of Chinese archers goes back thousands of years. There's a record crowd out, including many Chinese flappers, to see the archers bend a mean bow. Keep your eye on the target. Watch it now. Smacko, a bullseye. One of the ancient games that takes the crowd is the pastime known as kicking the shuttlecock. If you don't think it takes skill to do that, just try it with the baby's ball. The athletic meet today commemorates the founding of the Republic. It's being held in Nanking's new $1 million stadium, and boy, they're getting $1 million worth of fun out of it, and I don't mean maybe.
Well, well, our old friend George Carpentier, there in the middle, former heavyweight boxing champ of Europe, doing road work again. He started training for a comeback in the ring after 9 years, too. Wonder if he can make the grade. How about it? He's not so sure. George is almost 40 now, and that's plenty old for boxing. He has a lot of pep, though, and the old bean is still there. More power to you, George, and here's wishing you luck.
Tell me, Mr. Dill, how did you happen to discover this amazing talent of yours?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Hagerman. In the year of 1914, in the month of February, I was coming home from school, and my hands got very cold, and you see, I had no mittens. And I began, of course, pressing them together to get them warm, and that wouldn't do. Well, pretty soon I began squeezing them, and I was surprised to think that I could make a few different sounds. Well, then I began playing every day, and pretty soon I could play Yankee Doodle clear through. And that was the only tune I could play for 3 whole years. And the next tune I could play was Marching Through Georgia, then The Trail of the Lonesome Pine. Then for about, everybody wondered then how I could do it and would bother me so much that for about 6 years I put it away until I met an old showman that come up to Traverse once, and he said, "Can you do your old novelty anymore, Cecil?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'll try." And I tried, of course, and it come right natural to me after letting it go for 6 years. He said, "Well, if I was you," he said, "I would practice it up and see what I could do sometime in the stage when I was in Chicago."
If these boys and girls had to walk from Chicago to New York without stopping, what a howl they'd make. Well, fun is fun, and walking's good exercise, so they tell me. It's a walkathon contest. The idea is to walk and walk until the old puppies give out. 1 hour without stopping, rest 15 minutes, then start again. Some collapse from fatigue, for nobody can help you. But there's no rule against cold towels. It's near the end of the contest, and the youngsters are just about as all in as they can be without passing out cold. Almost 2,500 hours, and if a partner falls asleep, she gets the airplane world. It wakes them. Funny what amuses some people. There won't be so many dogs stolen now. Someone discovered that no 2 dogs' nose lines are the same. So now they're nose printing them. And if they're lost or stolen and picked up by someone, he can tell who the pup belongs to just by looking in the files. It's just like the fingerprinting system, a dab of ink on the schnozzle. The paper is pressed down carefully, taking the impression. And there you are, a perfect identification record. It works just as well with puppies, too, for the puppies' lines are permanent. Now, Bosco, it won't hurt, not a bit. Don't look so worried, Mama. It's all right. Maybe you'll thank the nice doctor someday if your youngster gets lost. Here we have the world's first human icicle. Did he make a bet with his friends? Does he want to get rid of his wife? Is he trying to hide from the IRS? Who knows? This man is being entombed in the world's first all-ice casket. Living for several moments in sub-degree weather, we've decided to take him out. Is he having permanent frostbite, or will he bite them? Checking his toes and his legs for muscular content, these gentlemen find that he's stiff as a board. Not only with a cold heart, a cold feet, and cold hands, this man is out cold. It used to be crossword puzzles and backgammon and mahjong. Now it's jigsaw, and it's got the whole country steamed up while other plants are lying idle. Jigsaw factories are running at full speed night and day to keep up with the demand. Overnight, it's become a major industry, and if you think there isn't a demand, no bargain counter in the store is more popular. It's one department where they don't have to worry about sales. The clerks have all they can do to keep up. They pass them out with both hands. Papa and Mama and the whole family make a grab to pick out the best puzzles. It's something the kids get a lot of kick out of. They'll stop whatever they're doing anytime to help dope out a jigsaw. It's a good way to keep the nurse amused, too, and makes the hours pass a little faster. He can't find addresses, but let him try. And, here's luck. Just what he's been looking for. Well, a puzzle. Keep the eye peeled for the inspector, old boy. Here's something hard to believe. Walking along Broadway? Well, maybe they didn't have quite time enough to finish at the office. My goodness, lady, can't you watch out? A whole day's work shot. The president is in conference. Well, business ain't so hot anyhow. Got your stock, babe? A tough one? Need a little help? Well, okay, we'll show you. Those go there, see? Get it now? And the rest goes here, like that, and here, and here, and there you are. Isn't that a surprise? Well, a windmill will raise water, so why shouldn't it raise an airplane? Perhaps that's what Mr. Jonathan Caldwell thought when he designed and built this contraption, which is being shown to the public for the first time. The mill wheels going round are supposed to represent the flapping wings of a goose. The wheels turn all right, but it just won't leave the ground. Not even when they drag it. It moves, though, and that's something. A good idea, just the same, Professor. And better luck next time.
Popular tunes of 1933. There were many popular songs this year, but here are some of the most notable. Night and Day was huge. Leo Reisman and his orchestra, with vocals by Fred Astaire, had the greatest hit with it. The Last Roundup was made popular by George Olson and Guy Lombardo, to name a few. Stormy Weather was recorded heavily this year by big names like Leo Reisman, Ethel Waters, Guy Lombardo, and Duke Ellington. Ted Lewis and his band did Lazy Bones. Don Bester had a hit with 42nd Street, which was also a popular movie this year. Did you ever see a dream a walking? Is a good tune I always liked. It was introduced in the film Sitting Pretty, also from this year, and has been covered by many, many people well into the rock and roll era. In 1933, popular versions were recorded by Eddie Duchin, Guy Lombardo, Bing Crosby, and Meyer Davis. Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf was an interesting milestone in music history. It was a song made for the Disney cartoon that year, The Three Little Pigs, and became so huge that many, many people felt they had to make records of it. At least 4 people recorded it in 1933, with the biggest version by Don Bester. It's still one of Disney's biggest songs. Guy Lombardo had yet another big hit this year with Annie Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And last but not least, the movies of 1933. One thing I discovered is that there were a lot of movies released in 1933. Too many to mention. I decided to cover the movies that were the most popular or most significant. Some of these movies may not have been big money makers at that time, but since their release have become classics. Just for starters, King Kong. The very first King Kong movie was a monster hit for RKO. So much so that a sequel was released the very same year called Son of Kong. The Invisible Man. Universal's The Invisible Man was so popular that all kinds of sequels and rip-offs have been made over the years. Duck Soup, a very famous Marx Brothers movie. Tugboat Annie. Alice in Wonderland. Long before Disney's animated film, there was this live-action version of the classic story. Don Quixote. There are a number of differences between this movie and the classic book, but who cares? It's fun to see Don Quixote on screen, and the spirit of the movie is the same. King of the Jungle. Buster Crabbe as a jungle man. In and of itself, this movie is not so significant. However, later in the year, it led to his first and only appearance as Tarzan in Tarzan the Fearless. People are often under the impression that he played Tarzan a lot, but he only did it once. A Study in Scarlet. Just one of many Sherlock Holmes movies over the years, but the only one in 1933. Laurel and Hardy. 1933 was a productive year for the comedy duo. Sons of the Desert is one of their very best movies, and that came out very late in the year. Earlier in 1933, they came out with The Devil's Brother, Busybodies, Dirty Work, Me and My Pal, Midnight Patrol, and Twice Two. Our Gang. Later known best to everyone as the Little Rascals, the children's comedy troupe had a number of memorable shorts this year, including Bedtime Worries, Fish Hooky, Forgotten Babies, The Kid from Borneo, Mush and Milk, and Wild Poses. The Three Stooges. The Stooges didn't start making their own comedy shorts until 1934. Before that, they were the underlings to Ted Healy and billed as Ted Healy and his Stooges. They made 5 shorts with Ted Healy at MGM. 4 of them were released in 1933. These were Nursery Rhymes, Hello Pop, Beer and Pretzels, and Plain Nuts. One thing audiences discovered is that they didn't like Ted Healy, but they loved the Stooges. Columbia Pictures hired the Three Stooges, and history was made. Ginger Rogers. Ginger had already been making movies, but it wasn't until 1933 when she made her first picture for RKO called Professional Sweetheart. This one isn't as well remembered today, but just a little later, she made her first appearance with Fred Astaire in Flying Down to Rio. She was also in Gold Diggers of 1933. Adventure movies. Rin Tin Tin Jr. replaced the original Rin Tin Tin, who died the previous year. His first movie was the serial Wolf Dog. Another serial of note is the then modern-day version of The Three Musketeers with John Wayne. This time around, the Musketeers were changed into soldiers of the French Foreign Legion. The Perils of Pauline was a highly anticipated remake of the 1914 serial of the same name. Since then, there have been 2 more remakes of Pauline, but more importantly, a ton of rip-offs and parodies. The whole idea of the woman being the heroic lead of her own movie has its origins with The Perils of Pauline. Airplanes and Pilots continued to be big thrill fests for moviegoers. The movie The Eagle and Hawk and the serial Phantom of the Air are just a few worth mentioning. Western movies. Most people like at least one Western movie. 1933 put out a lot of them. It would be unnecessary to list all of them. There were a lot of films and serials, but the stars stood out more than anything. Some of these personalities included Johnny Mac Brown in Fighting with Kit Carson, Buck Jones in Gordon of Ghost City, Bob Steele in The Mystery Squadron, which was a Western pilot hybrid movie, and Tom Tyler in Clancy of the Mounted. This was one of a number of Western movies made about Canadian Mounties. You will sometimes hear people refer to this kind of movie as a Northern, but it functions exactly like a Western. Drama and romance movies. Here we go, the heavy stuff of the year. These are the movies that were trying to be award winners, and some of them were. Dickie Moore was just finishing his stint with the Our Gang Little Rascals comedies when he moved into features, like Oliver Twist. Based on the classic story by Charles Dickens, it was a gritty departure from what Dickie Moore had been doing. People liked it, and he had a good career as a child actor. The Private Life of Henry VIII was the film that made Charles Lauden's career. Everything that people recognize about the image and personality of Henry VIII comes from this popular movie. Paul Robeson was the star of the black-lead film Emperor Jones. This was not a Hollywood movie, as it went outside the studio system and was privately financed. It was a disappointment at the box office, but over the years developed a following. Since this film went into the public domain, it became very easily available, and a lot of people have discovered it. The Power and the Glory, with superstar Spencer Tracy, has been considered as a prototype for the 1941 film Citizen Kane, which became one of the most acclaimed movies of all time. The Power and the Glory, however, was a box office bomb. This just goes to show you that timing is everything. What people aren't ready for today can be a hit tomorrow. Other popular, serious films of the year include Cavalcade, Dinner at 8, Lady for a Day, Little Women, and The Story of Temple Drake. Musicals. When musicals made big bucks. The top musical of 1933, as far as box office returns, is said to be Eddie Cantor's Roman Scandals, which is also supposed to be the #1 movie of the year. What's funny about this is that it's not a movie a lot of people know today as well as King Kong, The Invisible Man, Sons of the Desert, or so many other films from 1933. Another musical that many more people will be familiar with is 42nd Street, which is said to be the 8th highest grossing movie of 1933. The very first version of Victor and Victoria came out in 1933. It was made in Germany and got a lot of international attention. The musical comedy was about a woman pretending to be a female impersonator. It was remade a number of times, but the version most familiar to fans is the 1982 film Victor Victoria with Julie Andrews and James Garner. Horror movies. We've already looked at King Kong and The Invisible Man, but 1933 produced other memorable scary movies. The good thing about horror movies of 1933 is that they were more story-oriented and didn't try to gross you out. The Vampire Bat is better known to people today than it was at the time, due to the fact that it's in the public domain and very easy and cheap to obtain. It was a B movie, but surprisingly well done. It took decades for audiences to truly appreciate it. The Monkey's Paw is an old story that has been adapted to film many times. It has also been heavily imitated and even spoofed. The Mystery of the Wax Museum is another notable horror movie. Supernatural was a movie ahead of its time. At a seance, a woman is possessed by the spirit of an evil murderess. Her killing instincts were driven by sexual passion. The sexual content is what kept this movie from being shown regularly on television in the decades to come. All of this subject matter was very taboo in 1933. Today, this movie is pretty mild. It wasn't a big hit in theaters, but it's better known today. The star, Carole Lombard, was a comedian by trade and resented this very serious role. Movies by the stars. There were many, many big-name actors and actresses in 1933. You had Clark Gable and Jean Harlow, who packed them in when they were working together or separately. Bette Davis, one of the most famous actresses of all time, had a very busy year and her greatest success was yet to come. Gary Cooper was an established leading man. At this time, Barbara Stanwyck was the queen of the sexy girl actresses. She wasn't goofy or funny like other Hollywood beauties of the time. Barbara was just plain sultry, and she didn't always play the good girl. In 1933, tough guy actor James Cagney would also do the occasional musical or comedy film when he wasn't playing gangsters. A lot of people don't know that Loretta Young had been in show business since she was 2 years old. By the time 1933 rolled around, she was already a screen veteran, and her career was far, far from over. She was a very dependable dramatic actress. George Raft, who was famous for playing gangsters, made 3 films in 1933, and he wasn't a gangster in any of them. As a matter of fact, in Midnight Club, he was an undercover detective after a gang of jewel thieves. No coin-flipping gangster in sight. Myrna Loy was a star in 1933, and had been around for quite a while, but she wouldn't become a superstar until 1934 when she was cast in the first Thin Man movie, opposite of William Powell. However, 7 movies in 1933 was not a bad gig. Legendary comedian W.C. Fields also had a good year. He was in 3 feature films, 3 comedy shorts, and did cameos in 2 very short one-reelers. The Fatal Glass of Beer is a comedy short that you hear a lot about. It's in the public domain, so it's been easy to find on home media for years. Besides that, it's just very funny. Being set in a Yukon cabin, the short makes fun of those serious plays that are set in one room. Then there are the movies of song and dance man Jimmy Durante. Wheeler and Woolsey is a comedy duo that has been nearly forgotten by movie buffs today. They were very funny and very big stars in the 1930s. But Woolsey's death in 1938 not only ended the team, but Wheeler's career as well. Wheeler continued to work as much as he could, but never regained the momentum he had with Woolsey. In 1933, they made 2 films and 1 short. Woolsey, who had glasses and a cigar, reminds people today of George Burns. George Burns was around back then, but he didn't wear glasses until decades later. Mae West continued to be big in 1933. Marion Davies, who is better known as a silent film actress, continued to make movies in the sound era. She made 2 in 1933. Transitioning to sound films wasn't easy for Marion. For one thing, she had a persistent stutter that she had to keep under control. Will Rogers, the famous movie cowboy, made 3 movies that year, and he didn't play a cowboy in any of them. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you watched this video all the way through, without skipping around, you're a real soldier. I award you with an invisible badge of honor. If you didn't watch this all the way through, go back! You missed some really good stuff. Come back anytime when you want to visit the year 1933.
Yesterday, days I knew as happy, sweet, sequestered days, olden days.